Hey everyone, got another exciting interview today. We're going to talk to Gwaith Smith. How you doing this morning, Gwaith?
Very well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Real quick, introduce the world to who you are, where you are in the country, and kind of what you do in real estate, if you don't mind.
Sure thing. So, name is Great Smith. I live on Long Island, New York. I invest out of state, so I have holdings in Pittsburgh. Got a couple limited partnerships and one general partnership in Texas, and looking to expand into other markets right now, looking at Louisville, for instance. And been doing this since 2016 is when I got my first duplex. 2017 followed up with a fourplex, 13 unit in 2018. Sprinkled in with a couple limited partnership syndications. And then this past month, actually, we closed on a 348 unit deal in South Dallas that I was a general partner on, hoping to raise equity.
Wow, you have been doing some big things since 2016. Why don't we first start with the common why out of state, right? Obviously, I know you live in Long Island. It's an expensive part of the country, like the Bay Area is. But did you even look, or what was the landscape where home was before you went out of state?
No, so I didn't really look too hard in state. At one point I considered Poughkeepsie, which is a little bit north of me on Long Island. I have a friend here that does some real estate investing in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the big problem here is the landlord laws, not very, friendly
Yeah.
towards landlords. And I knew some people that just told me horror stories of, people living in their places that they couldn't get out for up to a year. So, they were just bleeding money because they were getting no income. They were on the line for all the expenses and they couldn't get the person out. So that in of itself kind of led me to,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thought California was bad. I mean, I get cranky when I have a tenant not paying rent for 2 months. To think it could go on for 12 months. Yeah. And I'm shocked there are any landlords in New York.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So, and I'm sure those instances were, I don't want to say one-offs, but, one was actually kind of funny. Guy was a patient of mine and he was renting to family members. And that probably complicated it. So he couldn't get his own family out.
I have bought many, many properties from disgruntled family members. Can't evict my niece. I can. That's pretty funny. All right. So I always like to break down that first deal. I think you said it was a duplex in 2016.
Yep.
Tell
So
us the story.
we were looking at Pittsburgh. My wife is from there originally, so we had familiarity with that market. We had a contractor that's a friend of ours that was helping us to kind of look. He made an introduction to a realtor. And I mean, we did everything remotely and it all kind of worked out well. The realtor would go look at places for us and she would come back and she would say like, hey, you know what, this one, problem. I wouldn't do anything on this one. And there were enough of those that she came back with saying, no, don't go on this, that I really started to trust her. That when she did say, hey, this one's a good one, you should do it. We moved on it. We made an offer on it. My contractor went with the realtor to look at it. He signed off on it. So, we got the first one, it was off the MLS. It was through a realtor and needed work. We had the guy that was going to do the work. And that was kind of the first foray into this.
I'm assuming just normal bank financing, 20% down, nothing strange.
So we actually used a line of credit that we had.
Okay.
So we purchased in cash and then we refinanced it afterwards. So being our first one, I mean, we didn't kind of hit that home run where you get all your money back. We still had a little bit of a balance left on it through the line of credit.
Sure.
But I think, we kind of set that up to be paid off on an amortized schedule and, everything sort of paid for itself. So we weren't throwing more money into it,
right.
But we definitely didn't. We didn't do it so efficiently that we got all of our money back and then some, and we're renting this out, with no money into it.
Yeah. No infinite return on this one.
No.
That's okay. And again, you got it on the MLS, you grew your network. There's really nothing you did maybe other than having a line of credit available to you that anyone else couldn't have done. Correct?
Yeah. And from afar. So, I mean, this was, a good 400 miles away.
Yeah, and I don't even know, what is a duplex in Pittsburgh? Are we talking sub 100, sub 200?
Yeah, so this one we purchased at, I'm gonna have to go think now. It was right low 90s. So
Okay.
I think it was like 92,000.
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
All right.
And it was a 2-bedroom, 4-bedroom. You know, one unit was in okay condition, one unit was not. So we had to go in pretty much and redo the 2-bedroom unit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the person that was there was, I'm not sure if she was not paying, but I mean, she wasn't happy with the sale, and she made it pretty clear that she was just
Yeah.
getting out, and she left the place just a wreck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we put money into that 2-bedroom, and I want to say, if memory serves, that she was paying $545 a month, and when we re-rented it, after we fixed it up, I think we came in at maybe 750 or so
Ah, there you go.
first re-rental, and now we're actually running it at 825.
Well, I mean, again, look at all that, right? So first off, you clean up the property, you can bump rents, in that case 40%. And
Yeah.
then, inflation, happens not only to values but to rent, right? You haven't had it that long, right? And rents have already gone up another, what is that, 8% or something?
Yeah, 2016. And, you know, part of it was also that the other side was, we hadn't touched that side yet. And we had a
Yeah.
place right next door that was undergoing some renovation. So, you know, that block in and of itself was undergoing some turnover and whatnot. So that maybe contributed to, you know, getting that rent a little bit higher the next time around.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's again, you say that like it's a nothing, but sometimes when you're an investor and if you can find the path of progress or where other investors are planting their flag, um, throw the chips on the table, right? The tide rises everyone. So
Yeah.
that's great. So you go into 2017, I think you said you added a fourplex. Was that also in Pittsburgh or did you already start going to multiple cities?
No. So that was actually like right around the block from the duplex.
Oh, nice.
So, I'm trying to think. So the realtor, I don't even think we were really actively looking, but she brought it to us and said, "Hey, this one just came on the market. You know, it's pretty much turnkey."
Yeah.
And we took a look at it, really liked it, had a great relationship with the sellers, both the sellers and the seller's agent. It was just such a great transition. It was an older woman who was selling it, and her daughter was the realtor. And they liked my realtor. We got along. The first, I mean, not, you know, just to go back to the first one. The first one, we had a little bit of a contentious relationship with the seller's agent and the seller. I mean, it kind of got to a point where we were just going to step away.
Yeah.
It just got contentious, you know, for no good reason, you know. And the second one was just like the complete opposite. It was like just working with each other and you know, just being courteous to one another. It's just nice.
Yeah.
So we got the fourplex that way, and it was just an awesome experience going through that purchase.
Very cool. So same deal, equity line, or did you get a loan right out of the gate? Or
Yep, same thing. So
Okay.
basically, we used the equity line on both of those, and then we refied out of both of them
right.
about a year later. Or what? You know what? It wasn't even a year later, because part of the thing about doing it when we did it and not getting all the money out was that, you know, one unit wasn't even rented. So we just made a mistake on the refi. Had we waited just a couple more months and actually showed income on the other unit that we were turning over, I think we would have gotten better appraisal.
Yeah.
Live and learn, right? I mean, that's how you learn.
Exactly. So then you roll into 2018, and I have my notes say a 13 unit steps up.
Yeah. So at this point, I really wanted to grow into, you know, true multifamily. So,
Okay.
you know, above the 5-unit level. And I think at the time I told myself that I wanted a 15+ unit building.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty decent story. I was trying to break in with the commercial brokers. So now looking outside just residential and strictly commercial brokers.
Yep.
I would go on their websites and I would see properties that were available, and I would call to inquire about those properties. And most times I was connected with an associate broker, so not the main listing broker. And, you know, he seemingly would be vetting me.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, you know, I would call about a property and they say, "Oh, that one's already under contract. You know, what are you looking for?" I would say what I was looking for, and I really wouldn't hear much back.
Yeah.
So one time there was a property that I saw that I liked. It was in a market that I liked in Pittsburgh, and it was available. So I had a guy there that I was doing some work with. We had you know, partner on a couple things on a flip and some private lending, and we wanted to go in on a building together. So the two of us decided, all right, well, let's submit an LOI and see what happens. So we did that. We went back and forth on the price a couple times, and they accepted the LOI. They signed it. We were all set to go. We were creating the purchase and sale agreement in Pittsburgh, or in Pennsylvania, it goes by the agreement of sale.
Mm.
And at that point, the sellers kind of went silent on us, and we couldn't get in touch. So I'm asking, the broker, what's going on? This is everything they wanted is in the contract. Where are they? And like, I'm not sure. So he's like trying to, to find the sellers, and basically they went back on the LOI. And according to the broker, they had used our LOI to raise the price on an exclusion that they had in their agreement with the brokerage house. So I guess they signed an agreement with the brokerage house saying you can market this property to everybody except, John Doe. Right. And they use that to go to John Doe and say, hey, I got this through the broker. If you meet this price, we'll sell it to you. And they kind of took the broker out of the equation. So the broker was like, listen, I want to sell to you because I'm getting the commission as well. Like, we rarely do this where we have an exclusion in our contracts, but we did it this time. We gave him every opportunity to sell to that person. He didn't, and we decided to market it. And so he said that he felt pretty bad about it. And then he starts asking me about my criteria, and I'm kind of giggling to myself saying, yeah, I've sent that to you a couple times already.
Yeah. Were you not taking notes, or was that just, I got you.
Yeah. So, okay, it is what it is. It happens. So probably I'd say between 3 to 4 weeks later, I get a phone call from the broker, and he says, look, I feel really bad about how that last one played out. He's like, look, there's something that might be available. We're not sure. I mean, this is how it's kind of played here. I can approach the seller or potential seller and just see if he has any interest. It may be absolutely nothing, but if you want, we can do this, and, I'm going to give you first crack at it if you're interested. And I said, I'm interested.
Nice. Okay.
So that's how we kind of got going on the one that we purchased. It was a 13 unit in a great submarket. And, again, we had some seller kind of issues, but in the long run, we ultimately got it closed and, acquired it.
Same deal, same partner that you had on the first one?
Yeah, same partner on the first one. Okay. This one was not line of credit. This one was a Fannie Mae loan. So we went
30% down probably?
Yeah, it was 20. It ended up being like 21%.
Oh, okay.
When the proceeds came back and whatnot. So it was supposed to be 20, but at this time when we purchased, rates kind of went up a little bit.
Yeah.
And there were some other things that they wanted. So the loan proceeds actually, ended up being about 21% that we had to put down.
That's not bad. Actually, most commercial loans out here, they're 30% down, sometimes 35. So 21's not bad. That's very cool. Any big differences now that you've had this for seemingly a year between managing a duplex, a fourplex, and then stepping up to 13? Have you seen any differences?
Well, yeah. So on the duplex and the fourplex, we had a manager in the beginning, and that ended up not working out too well. So we actually self-managed that from afar. Wow. Yeah, my wife was doing the managing on that, and it ended up being a lot easier to manage remotely the tenants directly than it was managing the property manager.
Okay.
Going into the 13 unit as part of agency debt, we were required to have third-party management, and it had to be an approved third-party manager.
Okay.
So since purchase, we've actually switched the manager, and that was that was an ordeal in itself. But I think we're finally in a place where we have good management. I'm happy with how they're running it. I'm happy with the responsiveness and where we're going with it.
Would you ever move the 2 and the 4 over to the same manager, or no?
Oh, yeah, we did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
We did. So basically, in negotiating the rate with the manager, that was part of the negotiation, was bringing those other 6 units over. And my partner had 6 units. So we were able to get, basically a
scale
lower on the fee, on the monthly, on the management fee by bringing in an additional, what would be like 12 units.
Very cool. How have the turns been? Maybe you haven't owned them long enough. Have you seen more turns in the 13 as opposed to the 2 and the 4, or are they too early to tell?
Well, with the 2 and the 4, it was, I think there's always a turnover when you purchase something.
Sure.
New. So,
yes.
The 2 and the 4 have been pretty consistent now that we went through the turns.
Yep.
We don't have anybody that's an original tenant from those 2 properties. And that wasn't by choice. That was just, they ultimately left. And now we're in a place with those where, I mean, we kind of, you know, we laughingly say it's kind of on easy street. It's just
Yeah.
kind of going along smoothly. We did all the work that we needed to do in the beginning.
Mhm.
You know, we struggled through, you know, some months where we didn't have, you know, good occupancy. And now we're at that point where things are just kind of going smoothly. And my wife always said when we transitioned over to the new manager, she's like, dude, it's going so easy right now. You know, like, yeah, but look, one thing wrong that will make it worthwhile. One plumbing issue where we don't have to call Roto-Rooter and, you know, and get
Yeah.
gouged on the price. And
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very
so, yeah. And with the 13 unit, I mean, we've had some turnover. Um, where the 13 unit is, it's a nice little submarket. It's a nice little part of Pittsburgh. It's called Aspinwall, and it's pretty desirable. So a lot of tenants have renewed, and there's been a couple that have just, you know, for one reason or another opted to leave, and we went through and cleaned up those units and
yeah.
turned them. But not, yeah, we haven't had like long vacancies or anything.
That's been awesome. So, I mean, one of the things that you said there that people should plan for is when you're buying what I call a well-used property, like the 2 and the 4, you should plan for darn near 100% turnover in
Yeah.
in that first year, because you want to raise rents, you have to increase quality of the building, and sometimes it just doesn't measure up and they need to go and you need to bring in some new ones. So plan for that, people. Would be my suggestion. Why don't we talk about property managers? That's probably the question I get the most. I invest in a market that's 2.5 hours away, so not quite 4. I've had property managers since day one, never tried the self-management route. And like you, I had to fire the first several. So what's been your experience? You know, looking back now, were there red flags on the first couple, or what would you tell someone that's looking out of area? You know, what are the keys to a good property manager?
Man, well, it's always comes down to communication, and you don't know how that's going to go until they're actually managing the properties. Unfortunately, I
Yeah.
mean, I thought I had good communication with the first two, but you start to hear things, and you know, in my examples, I mean, tenants looked us up and contacted us and like told us crazy stories, and
Oh,
we had to
wow.
report property managers on them. So the first one was a real easy fire, no pun intended, because there was a fire we weren't told about. So so basically on the first one, there was a leak coming from the upstairs unit to the downstairs. The resident had contacted the property manager apparently a bunch of times, and it got ignored. And according to the resident, the property manager was saying that the owners haven't approved a repair. Now, we were never contacted, so we had no idea. So as fate would have it, that leak hit either an electrical outlet or something, and it caused an electrical fire. And the fire department was called to the property. There was no damage, but you know, it was caught in time. But again, we were never told that the fire department was at the property. Like,
Yeah.
we found all this information out from the resident who found our name, our contact, called us, and then we approached property management, and it was basically like, there, you know, I don't care what the agreement says, like, we're done.
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
she was like, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that was a story about how we started managing, you know, those first two units. The second one, my partner, he had used the management company on his smaller stuff,
Yeah.
and we brought them over to the bigger one. And we had a recommendation from the broker for another manager, and he seemed really good on the phone. I thought that, you know, I thought that he would be a good one to go with, but you know, at the same time, this other company was managing my partner's stuff and apparently managing it well. But once we got into this 13 unit, it just, you know, things kind of fell apart. We had
Yeah.
certain things we needed to do to comply with the loan. You know, for instance, we need to go in there and we need to put GFCIs in all the bathrooms. We had to redo some smoke detectors and carbon
Yeah.
monoxide, and we had a time frame to do it. And they withheld money in the loan, so we weren't going to get that money back unless we did it within that time frame. So we came in right off the bat and said, listen, this is what needs done immediately. This is the priority. And it just seemingly took 30 phone calls, 50 emails to get that schedule to do. And I
Yeah.
told them that how it needed to be done. It needed to be done by a licensed electrician. And if it wasn't done by a licensed electrician, then they'd have to hire a licensed electrician to go in to evaluate the work and sign off on it.
Yeah.
So it goes down to the deadline, which is not how I wanted it to go. they had it done by a non-licensed electrician, and then looked at me and said, like, hey, what do you mean it had to be done by a licensed electrician?
Oh,
I had to go back to the emails where it was spelled out. And, that's just one example. So it was a lot of that until finally we're just like, listen, we have to go in another direction. And we went with the manager who was recommended to us by the broker originally.
yeah.
And he's been a rock star so far.
Very, very cool. All right. So that's your story, how you build these little stuff. Now you step up and you're doing LPs. And was the 13, was this a partnership or was that a limited partnership?
It was the limited partnership was, it was in a syndicated deal. So I invested into a syndication as a limited partner.
After the 13?
No, that was before.
Okay. All right.
So that was about a year ago. That was last July that I invested in one of those. And then there was another one like a month or two later.
All right. So let's set it up this way. So you're gaining some experience in Pittsburgh. You have 6 units. You're looking for more at this time. What makes you say, you know what? I'm going to throw some capital at a limited partnership. What was it about the pitch, the property, the person? What attracted you to that?
It was about looking kind of to my future and how I saw myself evolving in real estate.
Oh, okay.
And I thought that syndication might be a route I might want to go down myself. And I thought by investing in as a limited partner into a deal or two and getting the experience on that side, getting that on the resume, it would help in getting into a general partnership side.
Okay.
So it was all of that, plus the returns are great, right? I mean, relatively speaking. So I saw it as an opportunity to grow the money, have income coming in from it, while at the same time becoming familiar with that space, as a limited partner.
Okay.
So it wasn't so much that somebody pitched me as I actively went out and looked.
Okay.
And I found, it was the Ashcroft Capital deals. It was Joe Fairless. It was 2 of his deals that I had invested into. And yeah.
Very, very cool. So love Joe. I've been on his show, I think 6 months ago or so. He's a great guy and does some really spectacular stuff. So was this particular deal in Texas or where was this one?
Yeah, they were both in Dallas, Fort Worth.
Yeah, he likes Dallas.
Market.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the details? Was it C-class value add? Was it occupancy problems? What was kind of the pitch for this?
Yeah. So they were stabilized assets, and they were both in that. One was, you'd probably say, was a C, and one was closer to a B. They're only 3 miles apart. Pretty much the same submarket. So looking into that submarket, the submarket, it's a C submarket, but they're kind of in the path of progress again. They have a lot of, Dallas is putting a lot of money into South Dallas. There's a whole Grow South Dallas initiative.
Yeah.
There was the Redbird Mall that they were redeveloping. So a lot of money was coming in. And if you know DFW, that market is very hot. So it was a combination of, I thought, being in the right submarket in a really strong, market. So that was, that kind of checked the box. And then, it was looking at his past deals and what he had done to say that I kind of trust this as an operator and kind of just jumping in and doing it.
Very cool. So 5-year lockup minimum kind of deal?
Yeah. So the projections are 5-year hold.
Yep.
His standard deal is 70-30 splits with an 8% preferred return.
Yep.
And it's
very,
so far
cool.
with the projections, we get that kind of straight 8%. As a monthly distribution, and we're coming into the 1-year mark, at which point the financials would be looked at a little bit closer and see if there's any extra that we're getting.
Very, very cool. Well, congratulations on that. So your plan works. You go in as an LP on a couple, and now you switch sides, if you will, right? You go from an LP to a GP. That was a 348 deal in Dallas.
Yeah. So this is coincidence at its at its greatest. So I actually went to Joe Fairless's conference out in Denver.
The best ever.
Right? I'm in a group myself. I'm in the Jake and Gino community. I'm part of Wheelbarrow Profits.
Yeah.
I met 2 people in Brad Sumrock's program at Joe Fairless's conference, and we got together to help do the South Dallas deal. So nice. I always say it was a great kind of melding of different programs and whatnot to for this meeting. But I met 2 operators out there in Denver, and we were just chatting, and they were telling me about a project they had in South Dallas. I told them I was a limited partner in a couple of deals down there. They asked me which one, and I said it's Magnolia Creek. It's now Exchange 7272. And the guy looks at me and he goes, "We have the property across the street.
Ah,
That's the one. Like that's the one that we're working on." And I was like, "Really?"
wow.
So at this time, I wasn't that serious, or I hadn't really started to think about raising equity or anything like that.
Yeah.
But we kind of hit it off, and we decided to keep in touch after the conference, and those conversations just kind of progressed and progressed, and I can't remember if I asked them if they were looking for help raising equity, or if they asked me if I'd be interested. I don't remember which way it went, but we ultimately did, and
Very, very cool.
and I was able to to get on the general partnership side by way of equity raising.
Very cool. So, tell us about the 348 units. Again, it's across the street from something you own. You sticking with same management, or did it already have management? Or let's sing that song.
No, so it's different management. Joe's got his preferred property manager that's
Sure.
operating those two properties. This is a different manager altogether. And the business plan was pretty similar. I think the asset that I'm on the GP side on, it required a little more heavy lifting. There's probably a little bit of a rougher tenant base there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd already kind of done the research of the market itself. I knew how the business plan Joe was implementing was going, just based on those monthly correspondences and everything.
Yeah.
I was able to look at that rent roll and compare it to the projections on the one that I was GP on, and get comfortable enough in the deal to say, okay, I'll reach out to my network and see if we can find some investors who want to come in, for the equity raise on this.
Very, very cool.
And that's ultimately what happened. It was a learning curve, real steep learning curve, I'll say, because I had never done it before. And, I had told the operators that, and they were okay with it, but they asked what I thought I could raise. And, we kind of chose a number. I think that number was a little bit aggressive. So I was pretty quick to come back after my initial conversations with some investors and say like, I'm not sure, I'm not sure if I'm going to hit this, okay, can we bring it back? And we did. And they were they're just super appreciative that I did that, that I didn't just kind of stick with that original number and not hit it, but to come in and say like, hey, I don't think I can do that.
Right.
And it, like I said, it was a real nice experience. And I think a real kind of growing experience, even in terms of future deals with these same people.
Very, very cool. So great. Now you got all this experience. I'm curious where you're going to be taking this in the next, call it, I don't know, 2 to 3 years. Have you looked up that far? Or are you just so entrenched into this 348, you haven't had a chance?
Yeah, I'm always kind of looking to the future. The next 2 to 3 years for me, it's a little dicey. I feel like we're at a point, in the business cycle where, I have to kind of pull the reins in on myself a little bit and take a step back and just make sure that I'm being safe and I'm being diversified, and not just getting into too much all at once. So, I'm looking into some other markets. I'm looking into Louisville now. I'm trying to just underwrite stuff and really, get familiar. And I'm not saying that I won't do anything, but I'm gonna take the whole picture, into consideration when, before I jump onto something. I've looked at some deals that some other people had asked if I'd be interested in helping with the equity raise that, I didn't jump into. Part of it was timing. Part of it was just going through my network to do this last one. But at the same time, part of it is just a little bit of fear of just having these things, too tight.
Yeah.
And if we are going to turn, just to not be, not to dive into too much things at potentially the top.
Yeah, very, very cool. So I should have asked this earlier, but I do get the feeling that this is a side hustle for you, right? You have a day job.
I do have a day job. I have a very time-consuming day job. I'm a prosthetist by trade, which means I make artificial limbs for people with limb loss.
Oh, wow.
So my day is not very flexible in terms of like real estate, either research or, duties, if you will, during the hours of, I'm at work at 6 a.m. and I get back around 5 p.m. and then I have a wife and 4 kids when I get back. So the time frames of doing that are tight.
Yeah. And I bring that up because I had a similar story. I didn't have that job, but same kind of demanding life. And if you can still do it, right? You can still grow a portfolio. You can still do the research, demanding job, wife, 4 kids, and you still have a duplex, fourplex, 13, 2 LPs, and a GP in the span of sub 4 years. That's pretty impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, it's doable. I mean, it really is. I think the important thing is you have to just start surrounding yourself with people who want to do it as well. You know, it's an adage and it's a cliche, but you know, your network is of the utmost importance. So
yeah,
you know, talking to you here, talking to, and I know, you know, I talked to Sean Pan, who introduced me to you, and it just grows and grows, like it's a snowball that's just rolling downhill, getting bigger. So
yeah. A friend of mine says your network is your net worth.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, I joined that community I was telling you about, the Wheelbarrow Profits, and it's just been amazing. I go to their meetups, you know, their events and whatnot, and every time there's at least one person that's just influential that you meet and you add to your network, and it's awesome. Great. You know, it helps you see the future and the possibilities.
Yeah. So great. As we wrap this up, kind of 2 questions for you to think about. One is any lessons learned or what you would do different if you could, and then also how can people follow you or, you know, reach out, get more of your story. All right. All of those things.
Okay. Lessons learned. I mean, there's probably too many to count. I mean, I haven't done these all mistake free by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I've made mistakes all the whole way through, but you know, learning from them is important. So, you know, number one is when you're buying something, always get your CapEx number, you know, correct, and then add some.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've done some things where I've tried to do, you know, capital expenditures out of operations, and it just ends up being stressful, and it ends up, you know, it ends up not being the best situation. So have enough money in your capital expenditure budget, you know, plan for it, include it in your purchase price when you're underwriting, you know, put it in there. Don't think that you're going to put 20% down on, say, $100,000 property, and then, you know, everything's going to be hunky-dory. Need extra money to put into it. Yeah. So I'd say that's my number one lesson learned, and I'm sure there's a ton more throughout the throughout the process. In terms of reaching me, you can check the website. It's www.rustic-capital.com, and my email address is my first name, which is spelled GWYETH @rustic-capital.com. It's rustic-capital.
Very cool. Great. This has been a lot of fun. I do appreciate you giving us your story. It's quite fun, right? Multifamily, did residential, right? Duplex, fourplex, stepped up to commercial with a partner. Then you've got even bigger with being LPs and being a GP. That's kind of the dream for a lot of real estate investors. And you did it while having a demanding full-time job, 4 kids, happy wife. So congratulations. That's quite the accomplishment.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Have a great day.
All right. You too.